because a lot of people assume like, is this one of those deep poet things? Like, nah, bro, this is genuinely a family thing, right? This is genuinely my last name. My father, Sergeant Coon, his father, Dr. Coon, my great uncle, Reverend Coon. Uh,
Wow.
like we genuinely, my family, I come from a family that built respect for our name before that word even existed. And
Mm.
the definition of the word in this place existed. But also through my journeys, I learned, I actually stepped into a church, which was an Indian and Fijian church, and I introduced myself as Brother Coon. And the pastor, who was an Indian man, paused and said, "In my country, Coon means blood. Very fitting name, brother. Welcome."
Wow.
Introducing the Poet Life Podcast. Go check it out today on your favorite platforms, including iTunes, Apple Music, and the website, thepoetlife.com.
Hey, it's Christoph Jenkins, founder and creator of The Poet Life, and obviously the host of the Poet Life Podcast. And today is a dope day. Today is a dope day. I've been able to reconnect with my good friend, Coon the Poet. What's going on, Coon? How are you, sir?
Oh, peace, bruh. I am blessed. I am blessed. As you stated, it's a more than a great day. It's a beautiful day, man. A lot of intentional, just energy and applied pressure. Um, yeah, and so I'm just moving in it. I think everything is just moving and flowing the way it's supposed to. You tapped in right at the proper time for me to be able to kind of have this conversation and to kind of like speak a little bit more life into some of the up and coming projects that we're doing. So, bro, we good.
Beautiful. Yeah, no, if you all don't know, Coon the Poet and I have had a connection for, man, I think over 10 years,
Yeah, just about.
even Poet Life,
Yeah.
before Poet Life was fighting cancer with poetry, yeah, and Coon the Poet has been consistent and doing this thing and it constantly progressing, and to see what he's been doing. That's why I reached out to him, because I see what he's doing. And so it's a beautiful thing. We were just talking about it right before I click record, man, just to see both of our, I guess, timeline of progression. And we're going to get into it. But how's life, man? Talk to me. How's life?
Oh man, life is beautiful. Life is beautiful as a whole, right? Even with the parts of the testing, I'm a firm believer, man, that when you sign up for the assignment of success, you sign up for the assignment of adversity. That's something I accepted years ago, and a part of that acceptance, because I knew it's like I, I'm I could have been comfortable and of course not progress my legacy, my bloodline. Um, like got to the place of thriving. I come from folks that have mastered the art of survival. Um, but in order to get to the place of thriving and not just surviving, it was it was required to have to go climb that mountain.
Mm-hmm.
Now also like warned about the mountain is like, yo, look, the altitude's different once you get up there. The higher you go, there's birds, there's different things that you're not prepared for yet. But the only way to prepare for that mountain is to climb the mountain. You it's it you will make it as long as you keep climbing. I can't guarantee that you're not going to get beat, battered. And that kind of was the whisper. And so I've been like on that journey, this mountain climbing journey. Even back when I met you, I was on what I call my warriors journey.
Mm.
Um and that was like a big step out on faith. That was me leaving home for the first time,
Mm.
25 years old, um, really like having to separate myself from everything that like trained me, and going and discovering and also like really making real connections, new connections, and like really seeing a different side of this art form. And so that's what that whole journey through the East Coast, from the West Coast, drove Chicago. Yeah, made it to Chicago, stayed in Chicago for about a week. Connected, was taken care of by a sister who was a poet out in my city, Miss Cotton. She looked out for me, connected me with a couple of shows, with one feature, and then took me to a couple of open mics, and then from there was like, yo, the journey's real. So I kind of rode that same blueprint every city I entered. Kept going, Ohio, Cleveland, spent some time with some family, got to learn a little bit more about self, got to learn about my bloodline a little bit more, so I can be able to like be fed and stand firm on it as I continue to like contribute and add to the value of my family name and my legacy. And then ended up in DC and Maryland, DC, Maryland, Virginia. And from there, it was like, and I tell folks when I back, you know, I tell folks at home, like when I made it back, I was like, they were like, yo, how was the scene? I was like, the Olympics for this art form that we do. It's not just a thing that, it's not just a, we might go check out this poetry spot. Oh, I heard of this. It's you go, and this is from somebody who we have to create, right? In our city, we got a scene, but we create the scene, and it's work to create the scene, right? And to maintain what we've created. Out there, what I've experienced, it was like 3 or 4 different spots going on at one time, right? Within 30 minutes to 45 minutes away from each other. And so I was like, it was like an all-you-can-eat buffet, and I had to pace myself, and I had to learn about how to take care of my energy, how to take care of my spirit, how to like release some things that you collect on the journey, all that, like the pacing, right? And so it was really, when I say Olympics, it was really boot camp. Yeah. And I spent 8 months out that way, hitting a lot of spots, Bus Boys and Poets, of course, Spit That, Mic Check on Mondays. Like, shout out to all the hosts and the curators. Pure Poetry, shout out to Orville. Yeah. Shout out to Kariga Bailey that took care of me. Shout out to every poet, every host, curator that really, like, when they heard the word journey, they accepted their assignment and was like, "Oh, we got you." Shout out to my brother Luciano, Mr. Luciano, right? Jeff Johnson, Silent Treatment Entertainment, and just a lot of like kindred souls and kindred spirits out that way. And that was the journey, like really like connecting with the other me's in different cities, from different cities and states, and then like learning from all of them, right? A few that were maybe a few steps ahead, but really allowing them to pour into me at a young age of 25, and then like taking that back home. And it was like when I had to go back home, it was like a pull back home. There's a lot going on in my city, a lot of youngsters. I do a lot of mentorship work and a lot of just playing my part, right, with looking out for those behind me. And there was a lot of struggle in my city at the time. The drought had hit the West Coast in California at the time. Who was my pastor at the time actually called me. We checked in with each other, and I was like, "How's it going?" There was like a big shooting that happened, and it's, you know, right next to his church, and he was like, "Yo, he's like, these youngsters need something. These youngsters need you." Now, I'm not trying to make this sound like, you know, like a comic book and nothing, but he was like, what's it going to cost to bring you back? And I was like, and at that time I was in like in between that fork, and like, am I going to stay and adapt all the way? Or am I going to go home and feel like I'm incomplete? Like it was a battle, and I didn't know what decision to make. And I never really got to have this conversation with many out that way. But like, I remember I was in Southeast DC, and I was in the woods of Southeast DC. And I actually I was reading my word, man. And it started, a gust of wind, and started blowing, the pages started blowing. And I was really at a place of like, I don't know what to do. And I told my pastor at the time, I was like, you know what, I'll let you know if I'm ready. He was like, just think about it. But if you make a decision, let me know. I have $800 wired to you. And so I went to the woods, pages started blowing, and it flipped to Exodus chapter 3. Right. And a year ago, I accepted like whatever and however, in whatever form of literature, whatever form, like I received symbols and signs, and I just trust them. Right. And I learned to just trust them like that. So I'm like, okay, what could this mean? And I put my hand down, and the pages are still kind of flapping, and then I look, and it said, Moses goes back to Egypt. Now, in my brain, I'm like, nah. And I'm looking up at the sky, and I'm like having a whole, like, mind you, like, food was a little bit more scarce than I had preferred, so I hadn't eaten the whole day, so I'm a little lightheaded. I'm like, maybe I'm tripping. and and I flip it. The page. So I flip another page. When I flip that next page, it said assemble the elders. Blah 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 blah. And I'm like, nah, because I'm thinking about the elders of my family. At this point in time, I'm thinking about my grandmother who had just gotten in a car accident while I was away. There was a lot happening at home that kept bugging me. Had just lost a cousin. And those things were like jabbing me in the gut. And then when I made the decision to go home, and I'll be honest with you, I did feel like I kind of failed my journey. I did have that feeling like there was a lot of connection. There was a lot of shows. Like there was over 30 shows after I calculated, like with my name on my name on them alone, right? Features. A couple of them was fighting cancer with poetry. And just a lot of like feature spots and a lot of in the course of the 8 months, not to mention the open mics. But I was also feeling tired, right? I was also like, yo, I need to rest. I need to just like be still for a while and be in a place to where like it's familiar for a while. So I went through that, and this is and I'm kind of speaking on this because these come with the journey, and we don't always get to talk about like when you say like, yo, I'm ready to start my own business, or I'm ready to build, or I'm ready to walk in my purpose, or I'm ready, like all these things. Those things sound glamorous, especially if you've like played around in the past, like you went ahead and followed the original blueprint, the traditional blueprint, and then you make a decision. Like a lot of my folks during quarantine was like, I'm gonna start my own business. From there, they think that all right, I've made it. A lot of folks feel like from there, cool, I found my purpose. Everything is gonna be sunshine and rainbows from here. And a lot of times, what I share with a lot of my peers, a lot of my comrades, a lot of my young lives is that, yo, it's just getting ready to get started. Like your journey is just getting ready to get started, and know that it's not going to always be pretty. You're gonna get attacked. You're gonna get tested. You're gonna get checked. You're gonna go through the fire, but it's not designed. It's not designed to burn you up. This is the refinement fire, not the consuming fire.
Yeah.
This fire is actually designed to burn off your impurities, and you won't know it's impure until things start burning and you start taking it personal and
right,
kind of things, right?
Yeah.
So all in all, man, with that part, like it's over the last 10 years, it's been a lot of like things burning off, a lot of testing, a lot of trials, a lot of trials, man. Very much like a lot of the old school Greek mythology they used to give us, but a lot of those warrior journeys and heroes journeys is what I found myself in. And in this season, it's that, but it's a different level, right? Yeah. It's more now that I've battled, now that I've trained, now that I've been tested, now that I've gone through my deaths and my rebirths over and over and over, deaths and rebirths of relationships, deaths and rebirths of like even like my artistry, curriculum, my brand, however I see it, how I like the deaths and rebirths of what I'm supposed to be doing, all that. What I realized, and I'll say this, and then I'll pause and I'll let you ask whatever question. But what I realized, so I came home, and the whisper that was given to me, also in those words, was, "Wear your heart," because I didn't know how to come back home. Right? I knew that love was needed. And it was genuinely like, go back and love on your people, go back and love on your mentees, go back and love on your family, go back and love on even those that you may not have the opportunity to build with, and do it courageously, right? Do it with strength. Do it with matter of factness, because it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy. So, my brand, Wear Your Heart, is something that I also started when I came back home, and it is a movement. It did start originally in the East Coast, in DC. A lot of folks that's like, yeah, I pledge to wear my heart out in the East Coast, but at home, there's a lot of folks that also like walked with me in this journey as well. There's a lot of folks that stopped walking, right? And that comes with the journey as well, like because. Well, you didn't tell me wearing your heart. You say wear your heart, but I don't like the way this feels, right? And I'm like, I understand. And I always broke it down as I get we was taught to not wear a heart on our sleeve, and I'm not telling you to wear it on your sleeve, right? Because if you were to bump into a side of a wall, if you were to bump into anything with your arms, that's going to cause bruising, right? I'm talking about intentionality, like intentionally taking the heart from the inside of you, putting it on the outside of you, and you wearing that as if that's your armor, because it is. Because when you cover your heart up, it protects from the pain, but it also stops from God accessing it for you to be able to heal, right?
Right.
And so in this part of the journey, and then I put out my first solo project, first solo album in 2021, entitled Painted Power. And so this next project that I'm working on is entitled Heart Affirm. Because what I learned is, in order to continue wearing your heart, you must heart affirm, right? You must be self-affirming, you must be heart affirm. Sometimes you got to speak life back into your heart when you're being transparent, because you're going to get hit with all the different terrain of the air and the atmosphere. You're going to get tested. You're going to have fiery darts hit you, and it's really an attack towards your. If my strength is my heart, it's an attack towards my strength. And it's not always personal. It just is business.
Yeah. So, like 2 days ago, I posted on Facebook a quote from Mike Tyson, and it's similar to all of what you're saying. And he said, to succeed greatly, you have to be willing to fail greatly. That one hit me hard, because everybody says they want to succeed. But if they knew all of what it took to succeed, I now understand why people take the safe route.
Yeah, safe route.
Right? Because this purpose route is not all sunny and nice outside. It's rainy, it's snowy, it's a hard route, bro.
Yeah.
You were talking about that burning. With the fire. Right?
Yeah.
Because you said some things are burning off, but when you're being molded, right, to be fortified and to be strengthened, you got to go through the fire, right? Or you'll just be soft and right.
Yep, not built to last up there. Once you make it to the mountain, and this is the thing. There's a part, and this is the part of like just the natural ego, right? Especially when we start tapping into our superpowers young, right? We really start feeling like we are at our best stage, and then we don't know, like in those things that start burning, we start taking those personal, because it's like, wait, hold on. That's my family, and I'm at my best when my family's rocking with me.
Right.
Hold on, that's who I came up with. I didn't do this for me. This was for us.
Right.
Like, I everything that we decided, like, from different duos and groups that I was a part of. Shout out to Illegal Tag Team. Shout out to my brother Treble Sin, Lorenzo McNeil, forever. I get it though. You know what I mean? It gets hard to try to continue climbing this path. Right, my brother, he's still climbing his path, but to climb the path that we had said that we was gonna climb, it's not easy. Especially when you still gotta when bills are coming and you're trying to, and a lot of our past was rocky and shaky. Family dynamics was rocky and shaky. So we were at that place of like young adulthood, trying to find our way, but at the same time trying to find a safe space for us to just be, so we can build foundation. We didn't have the handouts that way from like our family, wouldn't set up that way. So we had to start, when they say got it from the mud, like we had to start building from the mud. And I'm never ever going to be like, yo, made it on my own or made it on our own. Cause it was a mountain of handshakes. There was a lot of folks that was either already climbing, done the climb, that was like, here, you're going to need this map. You're going to need some water. Here, take this hug. Like, let me give you some wisdom. And then it gets few and far between the higher up you go. And so I get it, especially during those times. You know, I get that my brother was like, I'm cool, especially as like real life situations are happening. Um, and so for anybody who kind of very much like you said, for anybody that makes a decision to be like, yo, I'm gonna be comfortable, um, it's never no knock, right? It's never, I understand. Like, and this is where I stand too, and I say this with all love and respect. I salute to whomever, I salute to you who has the luxury. Every time I get comfortable, the attacks come harder. Like the fire gets hotter because of what I've already accepted.
Yeah.
Um, and so I don't know if we ever even gone into detail, but I'm a gunshot trauma survivor.
Really?
Uh, yeah, 15 years old, walking home from school, 3 bullets. And so these days, I'm not so much identifying, like that's not a part of my identity. That's just a part of my story, and I have many stories. But when I was on that journey, a big part of it was still me healing from that piece because I never was able to step away from, from where I was from to be able to like get perspective. And so like also knowing that like, yo, I was given a second opportunity at life, so I know I have a purpose. And maybe a lot of that is me having so I went on this journey to kind of like really strengthen and strengthen the knowing of that purpose and the understanding of that. And it did do that. Um, these days, there's many messages because of the continued journey, right? Um, Recently, and this is where kind of where Heart Affirm was birthed. Um, and that phrase and that term was actually given to me very recently. And I like in this last me being still, like backing up from social media, backing up from a lot of folks, like really being still and listening, right? But it was after last year in doing all the work that I do in my city, pulling up for my city, serving, along with a lot of my brothers, along with just playing our part, really. Whether that be mentorship, whether that be crisis response intervention, if a young person or a family is in crisis, need of any kind, especially dealing with guns and gun violence, we show up. A lot of times, show up and don't, we show up and then we leave, right? I'll show up, check in, see if there's anything needed, support needed, and then we leave. So it becomes thankless, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
it's not for the sake of like self. It's really like, yo, what do y'all need? And then I'll go in, I'll go and heal later from this trauma, right? Reopening wounds kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But in doing the work, and it kind of like went viral. And it kind of was a thing where a lot of folks are still asking me about, but I just chose to continue to not allow that to be a part of my story because I know some things can be a distraction. But last year, June 22nd, and also because it was an open case, I wasn't speaking about it at first. But these days, I had to open my heart and really like free myself and like and fight the way that I know. And how I know is continuing to wear my heart, right? Continuing to be as like to vibrate as high as I possibly can, and being in those kind of bouts still my vibration. So what I'm speaking of is June 22nd. I was assaulted by the sheriff department in my city.
Wow.
Uh, After 10 years prior to that, being honored by them twice, right? Like it's just looking at it and thinking about it, like yo, and then having a process like what was that about, right? Like why? And then once again, me being kind of like in the same, feeling like I'm in the same predicament as when I was young, and like I had a lot of partners, into stuff like that could have, those bullets could have been for them, and like remember and like asking myself, like, asking the question of why me, right?
Mm.
Until I started understanding like why not me, right? Especially with what I'm choosing to do with it, because we could have retaliated, right? We could have, but instead I'm choosing to, and I believe that's why I and we and those that are chosen because of how their heart is set up. In this season, I had to re-ask myself because there was a lot of triggering, a lot of re-traumatizing that came up, like to where like all parts of me, the young me, the teenage me, that was in survival mode, like he was disrupted, right? My
Mm.
inner child was disrupted, right? The meek brother Coon was disrupted and confused and bamboozled and like, wait, hold on. Let me just talk to you real quick, but treat it like, and treat it like nothing. Treat it like I was not a human, to be
Right.
honest. And hands put on me, hands put on my neck. Um, yeah, yeah. A lot of in the video, that part wasn't shown in the video, and I really like held that part because I knew that was going to send a different kind of wave through my city, and not in a healthy way because folks are still healing from a lot of things. And so that was something I was actually, an elder of mine was like, hey, I can see that this is affecting you. You need to allow your attorney to fight this fight so that way you can continue to do what you do best. And what you do best is shine your light. Right. And so I had to really process and sit in that, and like while like being like anytime a black and white goes by, anytime like getting pulled over again, right, and like all these different things. But out of that, and not to mention like on the side from that, like even, and I'm just transparent in this season, like while going through a breakup and a separation, right? While and then while folks is like, "Are you good? Are you like?" "Yeah, I'm good. I'm as good as I should, as I as I could be at this moment." I did not think that I was going to go without being tested when I decided to stand, right? When I decided to take a stand and be myself. So, with that, right? Because with that comes a lot of, and I'm sure you've endured it as well, persecution from people who think they got you figured out, right? Based on pieces of stories that they got. And all in all, to be honest with you, I was pulled over because they thought I stole my truck because I reported it stolen once it got repossessed 3 months prior, but it was still in the system as stolen. You know what I mean? And it's a lot of things that don't make sense because it's not anybody's business. Especially some people just want to know. But I've told people, but some people just want to, and I've said this, and I'm sure you've endured this. Some people are looking to call God a liar.
Right.
So
Right.
they're looking to call anybody who's like, yo, I'm keeping my faith. Oh, you're not real. You're not. And I'm like, listen, I'm not perfect. I'm never going to ever tell you I'm not perfect. But I might not be what you think I am. I might not be the monster that you might see me as because you still have not spent time to connect with me.
Right.
Because I made a decision not to be. I can be. Right. And so with that, with all of that, with a lot of folks still spectating, we're in the social justice heightened period. My name is now the name that I had already like proven, right? Like genuinely like Coon, like folks who have been calling me my name without flinching for years is now like, why are you even calling yourself that? Right now I'm being re-questioned differently. Character being questioned differently. All these different things, right? And so out of that, though, was a lot of beautiful poems, a lot of beautiful stories, like a lot of beautiful, like revelation and realization and understanding of why, once again, why not you, Coon?
Yeah.
Right? It's the fact that you can still try to protect the ones that think they want to come for you. If you're still looking to love on your city, right? As folks are, the way we call it, turning coat, right? Why not you? You
Right.
say where your heart. If this is what you believe in, and you believe that this was a God-given instruction, then you're gonna get tested in your instruction, much like Job.
Yeah.
Right? Much like Abraham, much like Moses, much like every and all that was called, right?
Yeah.
Out of that we got heart affirm, which is the philosophy of, in order to work hard, you must affirm your heart.
All right. So for those who don't know who you are, right? Where does your name come from?
I knew he was going there. I knew he was like, let me just hurry in. Let me.
You know.
My name comes from my great grandfather. Like, it's my last name for real.
Gotcha.
Right. And so my family name, so the full name is Christopher Michael Coon.
Got it.
When you met me, I was riding in on my horse in town, and I decided not to even give folks my first name to where they'll have a way to slither out of calling me, like, respectfully, addressing me as my last name. right? Which I had built a lot of respect for in my city, right? In this
Mm.
part of the journey. And I've had that conversation over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And there was some testing on while I was out in the East Coast, and sure, with the DMV being real close to the South and that mentality. But a lot of those things I was able to address during during my features and things like that. But in a nutshell, right? Without because a lot of people assume like, is this one of those deep poet things? Like, nah, bro, this is genuinely a family thing, right? This is genuinely my last name. My father, Sergeant Coon, his father, Dr. Coon, my great uncle, Reverend Coon. Uh,
Wow.
like we genuinely, my family, I come from a family that built respect for our name before that word even existed. In
Mm.
the definition of the word in this place existed. But also through my journeys, I learned, I actually stepped into a church, which was an Indian and Fijian church, and I introduced myself as Brother Coon. And the pastor, who was an Indian man, paused and said, "In my country, Coon means blood. Very fitting name, brother. Welcome."
Wow.
And then I got to, as I, more discoveries, more journey, and I learned that in China, Kun means earth, right? And it's spelled Kun. And so it's I, once again, it kind of like it opened up some things in me again, like, yo, why in this place? Why in this place they do a great job with making things negative and derogatory that all mean power and all mean strength and all stand for something beautiful. What is that about? So it just caused me, just continue to go on the journey of like, okay, well, let's debunk some of these things because we're still a young country,
Yeah.
right? We're still young in our growth and all these things. But one thing for sure, like my message has less to do with my name than what folks like. We legacy building for sure. But there's
Mm-hmm.
other, but the big part of my message is really about like, yo, no matter who you are, where you come from, no matter what your story start out as, you have greatness in you, right? You
Yeah.
have a purpose and you can fulfill that purpose, regardless of how further back you may have started, how low on the totem pole or whatever the case. Like if when you're called,
Yeah.
right? I just think it's ironic that my name is my name,
Yep.
right? Meaning blood, life source, meaning earth, foundation.
Yeah.
So yeah,
That's
man.
beautiful. That's beautiful, man. I wanted to ask you, where did or when did poetry come in for you?
I once again like family legacy thing. So my father ironically left home when I was 3 years old, right? And
Mm.
he went back to where his father was and where he spent his teenage years, which was the DMV.
Mm.
And he left for 3.5 years, and then he came back. And when he came back, he had a whole notebook of rhymes, songs, poems. And although our relationship was estranged, whenever he would start rapping, reading some of his poems, like there was a different kind of connection between us. And I would go into a trance, and I'm like, wow, he's the coolest person in the world to me. And so I used to like covet his notebook, like, and take it with me at school, and I would like read his rhymes and spit his rhymes out loud to my friends. And then I started using his rhymes, and I started writing my own.
Mm.
And so at 7 years old, that's when that was birthed in me. And genuinely, regardless of what the relationship is currently with me and my father, right? And it's really not the way I would like it to be.
Sure.
But the reason why I continued in that craft, in this craft, is because my daddy said I was good at it. Like that alone, right? That affirm and going back to the philosophy of heart affirmed, right? Like there's gonna take some affirmations of your heart, right? Your heart is gonna have to be affirmed on your journey, whether you are doing it, whether the folks in your inner circle are doing it, whether the trees are affirming you, whether water is affirming you, right? And so yeah, man, my
Gotcha.
father. It started with my father.
Okay. Okay. So around 7. when did you start taking it serious to where, you know, you started to perform and things started to formulate? What's that timeline look like?
14 years old, talent show, Mad Pad production. Um, there was at that time an 8 Mile that just came out,
Hmm.
and so I was a lot of my friends who had started rap groups. They one came and was like, "Yo, this is talent show coming up. It's on the other side of town though. I think we're gonna join. You should join. We're gonna be there. You should just enter with doing your poetry." And I was like, all right. I genuinely thought they were going to be there. So I thought it was going to be like I get to hang out with them because I was younger. You know, I get to hang out with them. When I got there, they didn't show up.
Wow.
And so I went ahead, and who actually brought me to the talent was my dad, right? And my
Wow.
dad taught me, my brother, to always you know, his thing was to never be a punk, right? So no matter what you hear, go ahead and show them what you got, you know. So that was the first time I touched stage, and I shared a poem called Gentle Giant. Wow, you
Wow.
bring it. Yeah. And then the other one was called The Word of an Adult, which was about like, while my daddy brought me, I was like, yo, you be lying to me all the time. And that's what that's what this poem was about. So Gentle Giant was genuinely like me trying to plead my case, right? And really like advocate for myself, like, yo, I'm not what I look like, even then, right? And so I actually ended up in the finals with those two poems. I was the only poet, especially back then in my city. It wasn't a popular thing. There was a lot of rappers. There was a lot of dance
Right.
crews. There was a lot of young like step teams and things like that, singers. And then I ended up in the finals. Nobody thought I would get in the finals, but the judges were like, "Wow, wow," which again continued to affirm my heart. And then I kind of, being 14, to be honest with you, there was a part of me that like, looking back at it now, I feared winning, right? Like I feared winning, and I've never told anybody else that. Like at that age, I didn't, because I didn't know what would be next. Like, and I didn't know how to even, I didn't know how to even like, what do we do after this? Like, it's gonna be attention that I'm not ready for, and
Right.
am I even capable, and am I worthy? All these different things, and so I kind of like, the last poem I did, I just did it, and I didn't like I didn't connect. And I actually I re-spoke the same poem, which they were looking for another one, which I had a whole notebook, and I had a lot of them already committed to memory, but I kind of like threw the fight on purpose.
Mm.
And then of
That
course they gave
fear, that
yeah,
fear of success. Yeah. It's a weird place to be in to be between fear of failure and the fear of success.
very thin line, and it's really not, at this part of the journey as I'm looking, they're really not too different. You
Right.
know what I mean? Like very much like how there are a lot of similarities between water and fire. You know, and so
Yeah.
like I'm like, yeah, because persecution don't stop, right? You're gonna either get talked about for not winning, or you're gonna
Yeah.
get talked about for winning.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and other things that and other pieces, man. Like really, like um, each new top is a new bottom. That's what I'm learning as well. As
Yeah.
you make it to the next level, you're really at the bottom. You're really at the bottom, right? As you make it to the top of your last level, you're at the bottom, right? You gotta.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Cool. We
But
in
yeah,
there.
I try, because I believe we was at the place of, so with that sparked a passion, right, for this art form. And at the same time, this is when Death Poetry Jam was like just now circulating and all that. So I was really like falling in love deeply, and really falling in love with telling my story behind closed doors for real. Um, and it wasn't until, so that was 14, but it wasn't until a year later, and that's when I actually walking home from school, I was actually shot by a fellow classmate, somebody who actually lived, in my neighborhood. By the way of, and it's somebody who actually was, who got into altercation with with my friend, me and my brother's friend at the time. And one of those things, and to be honest with you, when I was the easiest target to get because I still went to the school the next day, right? So he ended up coming behind my brother because we were known to hang out with him, and then from there was told by his dad, you got to get them right before they get you.
Mm.
And at that time, I wasn't even like I wasn't even in on that page at all. I had just started theater. I had just signed up for theater. I was walking on like it's a whole thing to where like I'm like trying to. This is my sophomore year, right? All that jumped off my freshman year. It's a new year. He had been on probation for 6 months for doing what he did to my brother, and I had started like kind of reclaiming like my identity at the school for like poet, rapper, theater kid, like kind of like had new friends that were like different and and 2 days after he got off of probation and house arrest for 6 months, he found me walking home from school, or he came and found me walking home from school, and so it was a whole thing. These are things that we're still in the process of addressing with a lot of the work that I do, because our families are big families from my city, and so I've had the pleasure and the honor these days to actually work alongside of some of his family members and some of those that raised them, and that's another big part of the journey of like testing of heart, right? That journey, that part of forgiveness, which I learned recently, like it's still something I'm mastering. I can say it verbally, but it's a different kind of feeling.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so, to be honest with you, I fall in love with this art form even more because it helps me. It helps me affirm and it helps me master, like being able to find the words that are like really still stuck in some of that old trauma that I don't always know is there. And it's helping me like be able to like work things out um, with myself first,
Mm.
and to be able to prepare for that final conversation when that happens. Um, if that makes any sense.
Right. So is that person no longer with us, or
He's doing his time.
gotcha?
His time.
Gotcha.
He's, you know, and time is and the thing is like time really moves faster than what we think. So time is moving, and word. Like I said, I'm in my transparencies, and word got back to me that he'll actually be out soon. Um, Within the next 4 years or so, 3 to 4 years. Um,
Gotcha.
and there was a letter sent to me, and I was able to um, read that letter and kind of like start that process of my own personal healing to be able to like do the next step of that forgiveness when that time comes. And
Letter
so,
of apology.
yeah, yeah, which there's a lot of, because these things are like are multi-layered, because it's more than just me that was affected. Although I was hit directly, it was more than it's my family that was affected. It was, it's a lot of the folks in our neighborhood, our community that was affected by that are still dealing, that are still healing, because trauma's a ripple effect. When it strikes, it causes ripples that we don't even. I'm still learning like different ripples, even years later, right? Certain folks who were like babies then, little kids then, that like couldn't sleep because they heard about it, that are now some of my students. It's really a thing, and I'm like, wow, how it affected a lot of my classmates, because there was a letter that went out, and it was like our everybody in our community, from the even like the elders. It was like a whole thing to where at that time that was one of the first of many that will come. And so it it also calls for a conversation around a trauma center being built in my neighborhood. Um, so it's one of those things where I believe the impact, because the impact of it was so great, and it still is great. I believe the blessing behind it and the glory of it will be great as well. You know,
Yeah.
um, and I say that with all being as genuine as possible, and even being on this side of the, and I say that for anybody who may have felt like I may have been their problem, I may have been their monster in their journey, for any kind of reason, right? And this is a message for anybody. Like, forgiveness is is really medicine for self, and it really is. It really does work fast acting if you activate it, if you genuinely activate it from your heart space. And so, that's what I offer, is a gift of forgiveness to anybody. You know what I mean? That may have unintentionally or intentionally tried to cause harm or been used to cause harm to me on my journey. And then I thank you.
It's time to create an unforgettable experience at your next event with the Poet Life by booking a keynote poet. Poets excite your audience with motivating messages, charismatic delivery, colorful rhythm, powerful prose, and heart-filled stories with a style of spoken word that's tailored specifically to your event. The Poet Life has keynote poets in your city of all ages and backgrounds.
Visit thepoetlife.com to learn more and book your poet today.
So I wanted to ask you, because I've been noticing, your growth, right? And the repackaging of yourself since the last time I've seen you and reconnected with you. When and how did you start to get, I guess, serious about taking your poetry from hobby to profession?
Yeah. So to be honest, in 2008, when I first started my journey, and I didn't start alone, I was a part of a duo, spoken word duo by the name of Illegal Tag Team. And we were serious about what we were doing. We just we were not taught business, right? So what we were taught was how to hustle, right? Watching our uncles who was also, illegitimately hustling. And we felt like we are going to help wash what they were doing, right? By using some of their methods of like, not sleeping, continuing to grind. And so for the longest, even while I was in the East Coast, I still was using those methods. It was during that journey that I was able to like see, and as like there was a lot of like y'all had a lot of at that time period, and I imagine that it's even that the growth has gone to the next level. But like yourself and poets like Orville, poets like Yusha Asad, poets and MCs like Yusha Asad, like that was formulating and packaging these things as a business. And at that time, that's when I was really like processing and learning what a brand really is, right? And understanding myself as a brand. It was actually Luciano that was like, yo, Kun the Poet is more than just a name. That's a brand. That's your brand. And I still remember his voice as clear as day when he said that. And it caused for me, and I remember I did a lot of thinking about that, like what could that mean? So this is more than just, hi, my name is Kun the Poet. And it took maybe about a year after getting home to really understand that now this is an entity. And so this is actually Kun the Poet is actually my business. And under Kun the Poet, it's my consulting business, right? My consulting company. And under Kun the Poet, of course, artist development, which I was already doing with coaching some of the young poets in my city, those that were part of slam teams, mentorship, and all that kind of stuff. I also do consulting with using the art form to connect and engage. And then also under Kun the Poet, I also created Pain to Power Poetry. But what actually helped me tighten the bolts, like when I got home, it was the next level of realizing the only way that I'm going to be able to sustain myself without having to work for anybody was I had to learn first and foremost. Like really, I started learning how to master the nonprofit world that I was already doing work in, but learning that like instead of partnering under folks, like I can also build my entity to be able to receive some of the funding that allowed the folks that were using my programs, my name to be able to receive loads and loads of money. And so that came with its own like trials, right, as well. And then after like redoing, working on trusting folks to help me establish businesses, and then folks not being trustworthy and all these different things. After the deaths and the rebirths of that, I what I learned, what I realized is that like I have mastered this process. It's just in my own way, right? That I have mastered, and there's still a lot of it that I'm still trying to that I'm still learning to master. But I had, when it comes to like the paperwork, at least the basic paperwork, I've helped a lot of other artists establish themselves as a business, right? Like in a quick way, sole proprietorship or LLC, however they want to go about. And then also, I have a couple elders and a couple partners who are, they specialize in solidifying nonprofits, right? So establishing nonprofits. And so I send a lot of young artists that want to, and it's not even just artists, right? A lot of folks that want to like do get their hands knee deep into this work and start their nonprofits. I send them to a lot of my elders. And so it was really just standing on the shoulders of a lot of people, being poured into by a lot of folks, in trial and error, that allowed me to get to this place now. And honestly, what I can say in this last year and a half, I got the right folks in my circle that's like, yo, it's your season. And so like whatever we have to do to help, right? And so shout out to my brother Andrew DeFi, Sacramento Poet Laureate, but like really has like really played a big part in just helping advocate for the pieces that my advocacy doesn't work so well, right? With like a lot of the political figures that just hear, with him being white, they just hear him a little bit different than they hear me. They've seen my work for the last 15 years, but they hear it differently when it's vouched for. And then also just a lot of folks are part of my team. My brother Flash the Great, my sister Aisha Lewis, who's clinical therapist. So doing a lot of work with a lot of folks in different arenas has also helped sharpen this thing and package it differently, because the language changes when you go into mental health, when you go into education, right? When you go into, and then versus just doing business, right? All these different arenas for the same thing, right? It's different. It's different verbiage and different language. So I had to learn that part too, how to be able to pivot and code switch.
Gotcha. No, that makes sense. That makes sense. Have you seen the difference between now and then, with you being more professional and having your packaging together, your EPK and all of that? What's that been like night and day, or?
So I'll say, yeah, no, right? Yes and no. Because for the longest, because I did it backwards to where like I built myself as a brand, right? My name, myself, before I really was able to do the business. So my name spoke for itself in a lot, especially in my city, right? My name spoke for itself. So it preceded me before I stepped in rooms. Folks would hear like, oh, Kuna Poet. Oh, you talking about Kuna Poet that helped start this, or that helped us with this? Oh, I met him over here. And a lot of like some of the young people that I played a part in, this is 15 years ago, and helping like, navigate through high school. Some of them have gone to college, come back, and now they running some of their own schools, or they doing some real dope stuff. So yes, but what happens, the piece that works the best is this next level of really being able to negotiate $20,000 for a couple of weeks of work, right? $30,000 contracts, $50,000 budget for a conference. It works because, especially when working with like federal agencies that serve young people, their bosses don't care who they say you are. They need to be able to trust, and so like just the packaging. I'm actually, so the other part is the website, right? Which is finalized, and I've had one, and I had to like kind of tear it down and redo some things, but like that's another. I realized like just having something where folks can be like, okay, he's legit. And things looking a particular way, I had to learn like there's a corporate look versus like just like the rink-a-dink artistic, because as poets, we like to be creative and artistic and we like things to represent like who we are truly, and anything that's too plain starts to feel like selling out. I had to go through that process of like getting my mind out of that and like letting the artistry of corporate packaging be its own art form, um, and let it speak for itself, and then let me, once I get into the door, represent myself.
Yeah.
You know.
Professionalism is an art.
Yeah.
Excellence is an art.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I try to impress upon poets and just artists in general, or creatives in general, that it's not that you're selling out. It's not that you are being silenced or, censored. It is you being able to be flexible, adaptable, and not one track minded.
Absolutely.
Right? Because if you're not taught that, then you're stuck in that. And I'm not changing for nobody. This is my art and this, that, and that. Right. No, we're not trying to change your art. I'm a curse. Am I? All right. So here's the thing about that, right?
Yep.
If you want your song, your poem, your art to be on the radio, you can't send in the dirty version.
Exactly.
You have to send in the clean version. It's no different.
Yeah. That piece for myself too, right? Because I was also simultaneously brought into the profession of poetry, spoken word poetry, at the same time as brought into education. At the same time, I brought into the youth development sector, right?
Yeah.
So simultaneously, immediately, I remember at a young age, we like tailoring, changing the language, at least for when we spit it at the school assembly or the conference, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then but also like being intentional, learning like intentionality of words, right? And then also like challenging some systems. One of the organizations, and I'm gonna give a shout out to Sacramento Area Youth Speaks. I'm gonna give a shout out to SAYS. I'm gonna give a shout out to Youth Speaks as a whole, because us being young and helping like really build the foundation of that organization, a lot of it was like us challenging and giving young people permission and a space to be able to like be uncensored. So there was a lot of leeway that we did have at that time.
Sure.
You know what I mean? To be able to like give young people permission to like, really say what you feel in this poem, right? We'll create a code between us to where this does not go outside these four walls, just like just like you're at home or at grandma's house, but you can get it out here, right? You need to, but my requirement always was make sure that you're being very responsible,
right?
How you use it, right?
Yeah.
If you're going to use it as a weapon, don't just because you can. And I'm saying that you can cuss, but really show us a different way of that. Show us a different side of that word.
Yeah.
Right. Use that word to paint a picture for real.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So man, and these days, man, what I learned is like knowing how to pick your battles.
Yeah, for sure. And and then there's the question, because you said you want your art to reach people, right? And then you have to ask yourself, so okay, who's the art for? Is it to reach people? So if it's to reach people, then you got to learn to read the room.
That part.
Right? Because you don't want your words to repel people. You want it to attract people.
Yeah.
Right. So not knowing how to read the room, you wouldn't go to an old folks home and go curse them out, or if it was the kids, you wouldn't go and do the same poem for, right? So it's okay, got you. Now I'm understanding I need to know which poem fits best for this audience.
Yeah. What's more kid friendly? And then the other part, and this is something I was able to play with it out while I was traveling in the East Coast in 2014 and 15. But I really feel like I mastered it once I got home, and going back to teaching art, being a teaching artist, working with a couple school districts. I got to, regardless of the heaviness of a poem, I got to play with the vibration of it, right? I got to be able to like perform it fun. I got to be able to like raise, still like kind of like play with the cadence, slow it down. And that's something that I'm gonna give a shout out to Hawthorne James, Big Red from the Five Heartbeats. Yeah, one of another what I consider a mentor that I've came across in my journey. Worked on a production with them, serving backstage for Lisa Lacey, who was a theater mother of mine. But he was like, I'm bored with poets. Just y'all keep the same cadence, the same, like, you know. And if you ever seen that brother like really act, he's real like animated. And he's like, and I was like, hey, man, this was right before I left to the East Coast, right? He was a part of the Living Out Loud production. He played it was only two characters, and he played one of the characters alongside of the late Lisa Lacey. Rest in peace, Ashe. But we spent a lot of time. I took him for a tour around my city, hung out with him, took him to one of the bars where all the OGs and the players go, and they showed him a lot of love. And then he was just like, he really talked to me and poured into me, and like, hey, he was like, look, Brother Coon, it's okay to like take your time and find places to where you can play with your words. And then I watched him demonstrate in the production. I watched him grow because I was in every read and I was in every rehearsal. I watched him start bringing the character to life, to where there'll be times where he's like talking like, you know, he might be like, all right, Lindsay, but if and today, you know, I'm like, I'm like, whoa, he's going mad scientist. So I was able to like, kind of like, I asked myself, can I use some of that? And he was like, absolutely. So I started like really being able to play with my cadence, especially with the kids, keeping them alive, like, you know, and being able to like, even during a heavy topic or a heavy piece.
Mm-hmm.
And so that, you know, it's just like, it really, when you open yourself up for mentorship and to be poured into, and when you open yourself up and open your art form up and not be so, I know we all like to quote the line, I'm an artist, so I'm sensitive about my stuff. Mm-hmm. You know, Erykah Badu, shout out. But yeah, sometimes sensitivity can hinder your path. You know, sometimes you got to have thick skin when it comes to your craft, and trust that your craft is armored as well and it's protected as well, and allow it to be flexible as well. And so some of the poems and pieces that I was sharing out there, a lot of those poems I'm still sharing. I'm just sharing them differently. They have taken on a different voice. As I've grown, they've grown, right? I may have added certain things for like, for performance. I may have added certain things, different kind of crowd participation, call and response, make pause in there might be something that's current in a song that might actually tie to that song. So then I'll say it in that way, and just allowing it to do to really go with the flow. And so yeah.
That's good. That's good, man. What's next for you? I know you got a project coming out. Tell me about that project.
All right, so the project is HeART Affirmed, and this is like the coming out of the fire. So with that, one of the whispers as I got still, every time I go through my fires, I just get still and I just trust it, right? And I learn how to like meditate, really master my mindfulness. Been practicing mindfulness since 2012. So in that, and also like locking myself in the studio, provided by a lot of my people, like I was able to like write while the fire was burning, while it was hurting the most. Things that I was not sharing on social media and things like that, because those were the most intimate moments. And then it wasn't until recently that I was able to go back like, yo, I said, what? Right? Like I wrote what? I did, whoa. And I'm like, and it's like, yo, and this is still, even in this season, even a year later, it's still like speaking to conversations that somebody tried to bring up with me. I'm like, yo, I'm gonna just, instead of going back to my trauma bags, let me just put this project out and show them the process, the other side of the healing process, right? What it looks like to be able to speak life, to inflate your heart, right? And not with hot air, but with genuine like nutrients, right? Positive energy, really, faith, honesty, like acceptance, all these different things. And so Heart Affirmed is what came out of it. On there's tracks and poems that has some like vocalists on it as well. It's gonna have like some music behind it. It's gonna have like, it's gonna be a full experience and a ride. But I'm also touching on a lot of mental health principles, a lot of coping skills, coping tools, a lot of universal principles. I'm speaking a little bit about the chakras and how they align and what does it look like when they actually get clogged up a little bit. I'm speaking about like what does, like even like some of the forms God will take in your journey, because I've grown in that as well. Like I've accepted God is in all of it, all of it. And so what does that look like, right? For even like for the form of like in the bad parts of it, right? I have another piece that I've been really exercising this piece and kind of tested it out with crowds out here, but the piece is entitled Can't You See? Right? And simply it's one of the ones that was able to make it out, like, because I did a lot of writing about the situation I spoke about with the sheriff department, but like a lot of that was just like it was just like getting the pain out. But this piece in itself, I feel like really like it really did a good job with kind of like sharing my truest truth in the truest of ways. With time, if when you get the time, I don't mind sharing it. I think it's been a while since I went over it, but I think I have it committed to heart and memory. If you're open to it, if we got space for it.
Yeah, man, for sure.
All right, so to start it off, and this is one thing I asked the crowd, I'll ask you the same thing. When you see me, right, what's the first, give me a one word. First thing that comes to mind, give me one word that you see when you look at me. And I want you to take some time to really just look at me. What do you see?
Confidence.
Ashe. We can give a couple more if there's a couple more. You know.
No, I see strength, man. You know, I see story. For
Love
sure.
it. Love it. Okay. And then I typically will ask, what do you see when you see yourself, right? And I want you to process that. And I want you to also process the first thing that comes to mind when you see people that you cross on a daily, right? And are your bias coming out immediately? And stereotypes coming out and playing a part immediately? Or are you seeing them for truly who they are, right? And so can't you see a man? Or do you just see black? Do you just see big? Do you just see attack? Try to remember, I was once a kid, just like you were way back, when we all just wanted to live as if our lives mattered. In fact. So lately I've been tasting my own tears more than ever, trying to decipher the flavor of the salt they've always thrown, and hoping that in this seasoning will help me feel better. And the doctor has the nerve to ask me the cause of my high blood pressure. And he says, Mr. Coon, lately, have you been stressed? I chuckle under my breath. And I say, lately? Doc, I've been stressed my whole life. You didn't hear the words that I screamed out. You didn't hear the passion in the poem when I said, all my life I had to fight? Or were you just so caught up in the power of those lyrics to take me seriously? Do you know what it's like for your Dark skin to be a bullseye. Not to mention that I'm built like I'm ready to take a cowboy sheriff on a bull ride if he tries to treat me like big game. And so they just stalk me from a distance while they aim, preparing to throw the lasso around my neck, preparing to throw the noose around my neck, all because they heard the legendary tale about this coon they would love to catch in the cold part of this wind chill. No matter how much hot air I spit and blow, some of y'all still will never fathom what it's like to walk in skin so dark that it glows. With beacons of light that irritate the darkness in your own soul. And so I ask you, can't you see a man? Or do you just see black? Do you just see big? Do you just see attack? Try to remember I was once a kid, just like you were way back, when we all just wanted to live as if our lives mattered. In fact, that's that piece.
Yeah.
We say, I was ready to declare war until I factored in my mental health. My Black Lives Matter more than trying to prove that to someone else. They already know that they lost, and that's why they tried it. Just continue wearing your heart, and don't you get distracted. And don't you get distracted. Wear your heart affirmed. Yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful, man. I can tell that you implemented what you've learned from Red. I can tell.
Yeah, some of the
Yeah.
Have you had the pleasure of meeting the brother or
I have not.
Yeah, he's dope people, man. He's real one of those down to earth, humble kind of guys. I actually gotta reach out to him. It's been a while. It's been a year or so, but I gotta reach out to him. He hit me with the if ever you're in LA, one of those Hollywood, and then he followed up and was like, I meant that. And so I'm probably long overdue for a trip up. LA is about 6 hours away from where I'm at. So I'm
you in Sacramento?
Sacramento, California. Hey, bro, have you ever come out to my city?
Yeah. So here's the thing. I've been out to LA twice this year.
Okay.
And twice recently, I gave two presentations virtually for Sacramento public schools. So I plan to be back out there real soon.
Which schools?
Greater
and I
Sacramento.
almost want to be like, how dare you? But like, hold on. Next time, allow me to make sure that they know who's in front of them. The right way. Because sometimes, what you know what schools?
I don't. It was for one of our clients, the African American Tobacco Control Leadership Council, as far as tobacco control.
Yeah, I remember that project.
Yep, that project, and trying to show them how creativity and the arts can help them express their or get their message out to the students better. So I was talking to the superintendents and the
Sac Unified,
Twin
Rivers. It had to be either one of those. They were the ones that
was one of those. It's one of those, man, or both of them, because I know it was two Sacramento, so I think it might have been both of them. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah,
that's what's up, bro. Salute to you, man. Thank you for continuing to expand the brand and not just staying right. You could easily keep it in the DMV, you can keep it DC, you can keep it out there, but even doing the work, my brother Prentice Powell doing the work with my little bro Brandon Leake, allowing working with them and allowing them to where that's when I was like, oh, he's serious. This was back in 2017, right? When I'm seeing Poet Life gear on some of the poets that some of the top poets in our region. I'm like, oh, okay, he's really trying to do something different. So
yeah, man. Yeah,
please let me know, man, how I can support, how we can partner. I would love to. I know you're also bringing poets into the classroom.
Yep.
I would love to. However, we can align curriculums or even just.
It's a done deal. We've reconnected now, bro.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. So it's a done deal, man. I'm excited. I'm excited to stay connected and grow. And progress together, man. And like I said, I reached out to you because I saw the growth and
Yeah.
the constant progression, right?
Yeah.
So keep doing what you're doing, man, and I look forward to building with you again.
Yeah. I will. So, which I didn't, and I'll say this in closing, what I didn't share was, so Heart Affirmed is going to be also a tour, to where it's a presentation as well, right? A griotic presentation, where I just kind of go in and I kind of show and tell that story in different ways. In partnership with mental health professionals, in partnership with visual artists. And so I have currently right now, the aim is 15 cities, but currently right now I have 7 cities where I have those that I consider my Wear Your Heart tribe in these places: St. Petersburg, Florida, Montgomery, Alabama, Dallas, Texas, San Francisco, California, Oakland, California, Boston, Massachusetts. So I am looking to fill some of those other slots with other cities. I'm trying to go preferably cities that I didn't go to on my journey. But of course, if there's somebody that's willing to like host me or connect me with somebody who does the work of mental health and willing to do it in an innovative way, and willing to collaborate, and I'm also willing to collaborate with visual artists or even dancers that are willing to space. Yeah.
Beautiful. I appreciate you, man. If you could leave something with the people to inspire the people, what would that be?
I encourage you to find a courage to love yourself. And self-love is extremely layered, and it does not always look like the way we're taught. Sometimes we're taught to love folks more than ourselves, right? But the only way that we can truly love people and love folks that we truly love is to pour inside ourselves. And then once you've done that, you can give them, in the words of Auntie Lisa Nichols, give them the overflow from our saucer. And so please do that. Love yourself. And then while you're doing that, and while you're learning how to do that, in the words of Bruce Lee, be like water. Trust the process and the flow, and just let it take you where it wants to take you. Peace and love. Love and peace. It's your brother.
I love it, man. Listen, y'all heard it. Awesome conversation. Love to hear you all's feedback. If you want to learn more about the Poet Life, go to thepoetlife.com. But if you're also trying to learn how to do more with your poetry and create a career with your poetry, we encourage you to join our community at poetrybusinessnetwork.com. Listen, Poetry Business Tour 2024 is coming. We would love to come to your city, to your country. Let us know. Reach out to us. Let's build. Let's keep on growing. Let's keep on going. All right. Appreciate y'all. It's the Poet Life Podcast.
It's time to create an unforgettable experience at your next event with the Poet Life by booking a keynote poet. Poets excite your audience with motivating messages, charismatic delivery, colorful rhythm, powerful prose, and heart-filled stories with a style of spoken word that's tailored specifically to your event. The Poet Life has keynote poets in your city of all ages and backgrounds.
Visit thepoetlife.com to learn more and book your poet today.
Introducing the Poet Life Podcast. Go check it out today on your favorite platforms, including iTunes, Apple Music, and the website, thepoetlife.com.